This is a fully self-drawing RGB pixel display in Minecraft using only Redstone. It can take any image and draw it on the screen. But how did we get here? Well, it all started about 3 months ago. I was browsing YouTube when I stumbled upon this video. This is an RGB screen tech created by J2KO and Pixieblocks. It uses tinted glass, redstone lamps, and colored maps to display color you would see on a screen or monitor. Maps inside tinted glass was originally found by Vinicus13. J2KO and Pixieblocks found you can make a design like this in a 3x3 footprint using red, green, and blue colored maps. This design can display up to 1,331 different colors. And I was intrigued and wanted to see how it worked, but there was no download link to a world. So I spent 2 hours watching over the video trying to recreate it until I did. And I did nothing with it. I just lost interest and didn't feel like working on it. Until 2 weeks later when I had an idea. What if I made the same display but it could draw the frame on its own? So I decided to see if I could make XY plotting and having it write its own frame. And it was impossible because of this staggering. And I left it. I gave up. There was no way to bring my idea to life. Until one day I was bored and was like, what if I made it in a 6x6 footprint? Then I would have more room to build. And so I made this design, which does the same thing as J2KO's version, but bigger. And then I ran into my first of many hurdles. I don't know how to make signal strength memory, and I made the mistake of making my own version without doing any research. This is my version of a hexadecimal memory that I wasted my time on. More on that in a bit. But this is how it works. There are 10 cells each containing a signal strength from 1 to 10. Each one constantly wants to send its signal out, but it can't because it's getting cancelled. And all 10 cells are constantly powered by this comparator, outputting a signal strength of 10. And after every cell, the signal decreases by 1, so the amount is the strength you subtract it by. And each cell has a repeater lock, and all cells are unlocked briefly with this line. So I decided to hook this up and remembered I wanted a frame buffer, where you could draw the frame before it hits the screen and then lock it in place. So I didn't take a second to think, and just put a second memory behind the first one. So I hooked up some controls, and it didn't work. I realized that the version I made of the memory was resetting all the pixels, which was fine for the frame being displayed, but not for drawing. And so I just slightly modified it to have a write line. This does the same thing as the other one does, but as an unlock line for that pixel's RGB. I hooked this up, and it worked! I was able to write and clear pixels on the screen. So it was about a week or two into development, and I was going to try making some sort of way to store pixels really efficiently. And so I wanted to have nested shulker boxes, where I saw in this Sloime video. But I could find nothing on nested shulker boxes. Until this video. This is exactly what I needed. So I downloaded the world and spent a while learning how it worked. Watch their video if you want to know how it works. But I pasted it into my world, and it could draw pixels from the shulker boxes. And then my friend TheRealGamma asked me, what if we store values with disks? And I thought about it, and it made so much sense. Because the original version could only store about 3 pixels per shulker box. But with disks, it's so much more room. So I decided to take on the challenge of making my own disk reader. And after days of work, I came up with this. A disk reader that converts to binary that then gets stored. And so I showed it to TheRealGamma, and he pointed out I didn't need an XY value. What if I just made a binary counter that when all the RGB values are put in, it increments by 1 on the X value and then draws the frame. And then when it resets its values to 1, it increments Y by 1. It was genius. So I ditched the XY storing, and now I could store up to 9 pixels per shulker box. Around after I finished it and was about to hook it up, I was just doing random stuff in my world, watching a MatBatWings video, when this happened.
Finally, let's talk about some hexadecimal devices. This is a signal strength memory cell. It's just 2 comparators in a loop. You can think of this like a data latch, but for any signal strength 0 to 15. If I input a 3, the 3 gets stored in the cell. And to store a new number, I can just reset the cell and input something else.
You're telling me this does the same thing as this? I was in shock. All that time I spent making my own version, thinking I invented something never done before, was all put to shame. I got straight to work prototyping and made this. This small device does both the frame drawing and the frame buffer. It takes a signal strength and goes through XY plotting and then gets put into a hex cell. And one thing this smaller version has a problem with is that it won't update if any signal strength is lower than what's in it. So this line resets the strength, and that's the drawing part. Then this section takes the stored values and stores it in another hex cell, and this is the frame being shown. And of course, it has its own reset line. I hooked up the disk reader and made the XY counters. But the disk reader ran into problems. For instance, there were problems loading in 2 shulker boxes. And so after 4 days, I think, I fixed it and it worked. Don't ask me why it took so long. And so at this time, I upgraded to 4x4, and then 8x8, and then the disk reader broke. It broke when it tried loading in the other shulker boxes, even if this chest is full. So I had to spend around 5 hours debugging and another 4 days fixing it. But it was all done. Everything I needed has been made. I also hooked up a way to clear the pixels. Also, around this time, I found a lot of optimizations. Pretty much everything was made faster or optimized in some way. Something I wanted from the start was a schematic generator for your image, and I was determined to make these scripts, and thus starting my 2 months of torture. The only problem? I don't know how to code. Anytime I've coded in the past, I've used ChatGPT, since it's been my only source. I've tried learning how to code, but I'm not at that skill level yet. I wanted a schematic to place the shulker boxes containing all the disks for the image. Easy, right? No. ChatGPT sucks for coding and do not do what I did. I'm not going to go into detail on what I did during these 2 months, but you can imagine. Anyways, I gave up on the disk reader schematic creator, but the disk reader will still be available in the world if you want to try. The disks are ordered 0 to 10. I decided on using a storage using this memory module from MatBet Wing's CPU, and it already has a schematic generator. Now, this isn't as good as storage as Torb's display, so it can't run a video. Maybe someone else will hook up that storage to this screen. So I made some adjustments to the image converting script and to the schematic creation script, and boom, everything was done, putting an end to my suffrage. So now that the scripts were done, I made this program counter with a cancel line for when all pixels are written to. The clock draws a pixel around every 9 seconds. And so now I upgraded to 16x16, and then the lag ensued. I didn't mention this earlier, but I installed the fast item frames mod to run the game faster. And even with that, I was already starting to lag. And everything worked for 16x16, so I went for 32x32, where the real lag and bugs happen. With 30,000 plus item frames being rendered, I was getting 8 FPS, even with faster item frames. And not only that, there were so many bugs with the display that I had to fix at 10 FPS. But after everything, it finally worked. The only downsides is it takes a disgusting 30 minutes to draw a frame at 25 times speed. And you can't store multiple frames due to the storage only allowing for 32x32 amount of pixels. There's probably a better storage method, but I just really wanted this project to be over. It's really funny how this is my second ever Redstone build I made by myself. This is my first ever Redstone build with originality, a lights out game with a randomizer. Anyways, here's some of my friends' images on the screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad I could finally finish this project and make this video. The world download as well as the GitHub repo are in the description if you want to go check it out. I'll see you guys later.